Will you be able to put on your video for me?
Let me try, because my background is a little crazy.
Okay.
Let me try.
Yeah, so I think we're live now. Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to this and joining this live stream. So welcome to the GrowthHackers Africa webinar. And the title for today is Strategies for Success, Navigating Omni-Channel Marketing in the African Marketplace. And today we are literally just going a bit into the rabbit hole of marketplace products. We have a couple of marketplace products in Africa, right? And today we'll be digging deep to understand typically how do you drive growth for this type of products, right? What exactly it entails, what it's all about, right? And we have quality people who are with us, Alexandra Pelumi, who have years of experience in terms of driving and scaling different marketplace products, right, and also consumer tech products. And they'll be sharing from their wealth of experience with us, right. We have one of our speakers, Alexandra. She's the performance marketing lead at Mano Africa, right. And if you are living in Lagos and in one or two other areas in Nigeria, you'll be very, very much familiar with Mano. Mano is responsible for Mano Africa is one of one of the best e-commerce and delivery platforms that we know. Right, I've gotten very, very much interesting and raving reviews about Mano from a couple of people who have used them, right? And Alexander is responsible for the performance marketing, right at Mano. So I'm just going to read a profile briefly. So Alexander, he's a data-driven performance marketing leader with over 8 years of experience driving growth for digital platforms across Europe and Africa. At Mano Africa, she oversees acquisition and CRM strategy across Nigeria and Angola, having doubled monthly purchases while cutting customer acquisition costs by over 50%. Her expertise spans across user acquisition, analytics, campaign automation across Google, Meta, and TikTok. So welcome, Alexandra. Thanks so much for joining us. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, and thank you for the lovely introduction. Yeah, indeed, for the last 2 years, I've been in Mano Africa, taking care of performance and also on CRM and automation. So we'll be very happy to talk about it and to hear your questions and possibly answering them.
Awesome. I think I love the way you said you have been taking care of performance marketing. Right? That's a very, very nice way to describe what you do. And also next up as our speaker, we also have Oyetimehin. And Pelumi is a growth leader, a growth professional. He's a prominent growth system architect, right? And he has notable record in fostering growth and innovation in Africa. He has his expertise is in growth, and he has significantly increased user acquisition and retention for achieving over 1.5 million users during his time at Naspers Media 24, and also repeated the same when he was at Zumba, where he brought in a million users and gross volume of over $46 million. Right. He also has experiences in different other consumer tech products, right, like Pillow, QuickBooks, which is a mobility platform, right, and also SafeBorder, a similarly mobility platform. These two platforms are very interesting because they are also typically you can refer to them as marketplace products because they have like demand and supply users that they both attend to. And he's the former president of Clan and a digital trainer for Google in Nigeria. He has trained thousands of people influencing the digital landscape and is a recognized speaker and mentor. He received the CEO's Innovation Award and is a 3-time White Tech 100 honoree, showcasing his commitment to continuous learning and mentorship in marketing and business strategy. Thank you so much for joining us, Pelumi. We're glad to have you. Hi, Pelumi. Just say what?
Hi, Lumi. Thanks for having me here. I think this is my second time on GrowthHackers Africa. I'm glad to be here, really. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, so thank you so much, guys. I think we can just get right into it a bit. Before we get right into it, like I mentioned, I would love to ask, right? I love to ask speakers when it comes to marketplace products in Africa, right? What are the what will you say are the top three experiences that has surprised you the most, right? With Africans and dealing with marketplace products. Maybe you can just share one or two experiences from your top three experience that has like be a culture, either culture shock for you or very surprising or things you're not expecting or things you have not been used to, like dealing with other kind of products. But when it came to marketplace, you experienced this. Pelumi, would you like to go first?
Sure, no problem. So I think one of the biggest things for me is, I think to a large extent, culture is very important, right? When you're getting results, and in some ways, you can't copy and paste what you do in Lagos and expect it to work in Abuja, or copy what you do in Nigeria and expect it to work in Ghana or Kenya for that matter. And it was one of those things that you learn the hard way because at the time I joined NASPAS, the agency was based in South Africa and I was based here in Lagos. So they were basically just doing what would have worked for Johannesburg and Cape Town until we resumed, and like, no, it can't work this way. We have to work on this like this. We have to try this out, right down to language modifications or even what people were interested in, So they were pushing, oh, it's an AI focused news platform, whereas, guys were not interested in the tech, they were interested in what they could do with it and the information that they could find. Another thing is understanding that price is sensitive. Like, to most consumers, right? Price is generally sensitive all over the world, but in Africa, it's a little bit more than that because one of the things you realize is the purchasing power is quite low, and in comparison to the other parts of the world versus what they want to gain with that little money that they have. So you have to constantly think about how do you deliver value without watering down the quality of your product while still ensuring that you're able to cater to the people correctly. And finally, people are passionate about whatever product that you decide to share with them. Once they build that passion, they want to get involved, they want to share suggestions, they want to tell you, oh, we think you should do this differently, or you have to do this, and you need to understand that they're not coming from a place of being rude. They're just passionate about the product working for them the way they expect it to. So for example, we tell someone that this is a product that you use to read news, you can use it to it learns your habits, right? But then they come and tell you that, oh, if it's learning my habits, I should be able to talk to other people within the same app. Like, you have Facebook for that. Said no, but if I'm reading the news, I want to be able to share I want to be able to discuss it with people. Then you have our comment section, and all of that. Eventually we had to add like a little social element to it where they could log in and then they could like and share it, So the passion, definitely can't underestimate that, the pricing, and then of course the culture.
Oh,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you very much for that, Pelumi. So just like you mentioned, number one, people are very, very much like there's a culture which is they don't care. They are not necessarily as hinged on the tech as compared to like what the value you are bringing and the culture. And then Africans or Nigerians can be a bit, say in this region, can be a little bit more price sensitive than other regions. And then the last thing you mentioned is in terms of like they are passionate with you. Right? They literally are concerned about the business and like they are very passionate and they give their feedback as much as they can. Thank you so much for that. Alexandra, how are you on your own end? What are like typical things that you've seen that has probably shocked yours to only about as it has like marketplace products in Africa?
Yeah, I'm coming from my experience working from a bigger global team for different continents, not just Africa. And for me, the biggest part is that it's the market which is very dynamic. Basically, every morning you will open your computer and you don't know if it's a big strike or there is huge rain that is blocking the traffic or there is something else happening, and you need to be prepared and you need to be having a plan B and different strategy for this. Meanwhile, working in, I don't know, Central Europe, probably you can forecast, you can expect more or less the same thing every day, which is definitely not the same in, for example, my markets, which are Angola and Nigeria. Uh, very much more details that are going to affect you as, I don't know, low internet connection, or again, sudden change of price on a different market and a shortage of a certain product. It can immediately, in a day, change the whole supply, change the whole demand in the app, and we need to take it into account and to consider it and to plan accordingly.
Oh, awesome. Thanks so much for that, Alexandra. So for what you said, literally, there's a lot of like dynamics that you have to like factor into when it comes to like Nigerians or Africans that you don't necessarily, you're unable to like forecast per se, right? But it just comes all of a sudden sometimes. That's also noted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say we forecast and we're able to forecast, but there are way more, I would say, even macroeconomics things that are coming into the place. Logistical chains or again weather conditions, because obviously, I don't know, heavy rain period would not affect Croatia as much as it would affect Luanda or Lagos, or even political situation. So indeed, you have to forecast even more, taking into account that things can change in any day.
Oh, okay, got it then. Thanks for that clarification. All right, I think we can get right into it a bit further. All right, so just looking at the topic today, the topic basically is omni-channel marketing, strategies for omni-channel marketing for Africa, for growth, for driving growth in the African marketplace. Right, and typically omni-channel marketing, when we speak about it, is basically referring to like viewing available and leveraging multiple channels, right, of marketing and also integrating it together such that you have shared access. You have a unique point of view as the customer, and you're able to interact with the customer, not creating a single wholesome experience for the customer. So, just curious, in terms of the typical Africans, right? Typical Africans are leveraging or interacting with the same brand across both WhatsApp, SMS, online ads on Facebook, Google, Meta, right? And different brands now, especially big brands in Africa, have realized that you don't win by just leveraging one channel, right? You really cannot win just by leveraging a single channel. You have to like have your presence across multiple channels and be able to interact with different customers in different ways across these multiple channels, because each of them have their different preference, different things that they can access. There are some people you can access via online. There are some people you can't access unless you leverage channels like SMS, right? And there are some people that would prefer to, they would prefer to chat you up on WhatsApp compared to like probably interacting with your website or even checking you out online. And there's some people that prefer direct calls. So having worked with like big brands that are able to like leverage these different channels, right? I'm just curious on how have you been able to, and this question is for, let me start with Alexandra. How have you been able to create consistency and personalization across the channels without overwhelming users?
All right. So first, obviously, you need to select your channels curatedly, because we cannot send the same message on, I don't know, out of home, offline, SMS, WhatsApp, and CRM. So you select the channels, and also we try to have a strategy that one user, one story, meaning someone who recently bought in groceries will not have the same experience from someone who recently ordered, I don't know, from the restaurant. Plus, again, the narratives are different. The people would probably got more, let's say, formal approach by email, more funny one during the push communications. Then there would be totally different experience on, I don't know, more social media, more user-generated content. And then they would see online ad that actually would trigger something different. So basically, yes, structuring a lot the channels, knowing for what exactly you would need each channel, because again, people perform differently on Google than people perform completely differently on YouTube or Meta, or Instagram, and working a lot with CRM, crafting a lot your user targeting. And targeting, I mean, not let's say social demographical targeting, which is, at least in my experience, I find it a bit outdated, but crafting the persona on the behavior. So meaning, what are they buying? Why are they buying it? Frequency or vertical. And this is how we try to create, let's say, not one path, but a lot of different paths to reach the user with something that resonates with him.
All right, thank you so much for that. So if I hear you correctly, literally having to planning out what you want to leverage your channel for, right, is very important, because at the end of the day, you need to know who you are looking to target with these channels, right? What their typical behavior and their typical experience looks like with these channels, and that would help you to know what to map to who, right? And yeah, I think I've been able to capture that. Thanks so much for that. Hi, Pelumi. I'm just going to direct this at you. Similarly, in your experience, right? How have you been able to like create that sort of like unique, but still simple and consistent presence across multiple channels for campaigns and for brands that you've worked with, that you have had to leverage multiple channels, online, social media, WhatsApp, and the rest of it. What made you to choose those channels, right? And now you're able to maintain like a single consistent presence across both.
Okay. So one thing that we have to understand generally is, so for most people, even if they are the same person, right, they generally tend to have different behaviors across different channels. And we say this regularly. So for example, you'd see the way someone would react on Twitter versus the way they would react to the same or similar content on Instagram, right? So what you want to do is make sure that you're speaking to them in the language of that channel, right? The way you talk to them via SMS will be different, and but your message at the core of it is still the same. So even if you're going to add slangs or colloquialisms to it on Twitter, for example, you will still put on the happiest face possible for them on Instagram, right? You make it the most fun possible for them on TikTok or Snapchat, right? And you break it down across those different channels. So by the time you do that, they don't feel alienated from your brand, because you're still in tandem with the channel that you're talking about, that you're using. And one of the things that you also have to do when you're choosing channels, for example, it will be that at the core of it, what are you trying to communicate? What are you trying to achieve? And based on that, you get to choose. And then, of course, who are the people that you're talking to? And then based on that, you get to choose the channels. For example, if I am talking to millennials, right, and I need better responses, or let's say millennials and above, I'm not going to go use Snapchat for that. I'm not going to I might use TikTok, because now everybody's sort of migrating to TikTok from Instagram, but I'm not going to use Snapchat for that. I'm more likely to find Gen Zs on Snapchat and maybe even TikTok. So depending on the demographic, in terms of age, in terms of attitude, right, I basically decide, okay, this channel would work. If it's something that I think, even another thing which, when we think about it, we don't usually think about, is even the product itself, right? If I'm pushing a crypto product, I'm more likely to use Twitter and or Snapchat versus using Facebook or even Google, because beyond the personalization, beyond creating consistency, even the approval processes for those platforms is something that you have to like think about. So you pick which platform will work, this product, this demography, and then create your messaging at the core of it to say, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve, and this is what we're trying to say, and basically use that to frame your entire content plan, so that at the end of the day, what happens is you're talking to them where they are in the language that they understand, and that way you get to achieve that consistency. The thin line, it's like a balancing act, and you get to achieve that at the end of the day. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Just listening to you, from what I hear you say, also just speaking it out. Number one, the kind of customers they are, like determines the channel, right, and also the kind of product also like has a very significant role to play in the channel that you choose to be consistent or not show up on, right, and also the messaging you're trying to pass across at the end of the day, or the kind of experience you want to deliver, also determines the kind of channels that you are putting on. Right. Thank you so much for running through that. I think I'm going to take it right back to Alexandra. And the question I have for you, Alexandra, in this case is, like you mentioned previously, you mentioned the challenges that, or the culture shocks that you experience with working with Africans, or like basically working in the African region. Like, I'm just going to want us to unwrap a couple of that a bit further, right? And so when you work in Europe, you work in Africa, right? And right for Mano also, I believe they have access across both what's happening globally and also what's happening within Africa. But so my question here is, what are the unique opportunities that you've observed, right, when you're executing omni-channel strategies for the African markets, typically Nigerian and Angola? What are the unique opportunities that you observed? You touched on the challenges or the shocks. So I'm curious, what are the opportunities, or what are the sweet spots you've seen, right, that you probably not experienced in other regions?
Sure. Well, if before I mentioned that it's very dynamic market, it's also a possibility of having a flexible market, meaning there are a lot of niches which are still very empty. And for example, if in Nigeria we are competing with way more companies, but in Angola, no one ever did grocery delivery, fast grocery delivery before. And so this means it's a niche, it's an opportunity, but it's also a challenge, because we have to actually show the people that it's a good opportunity, it's convenient for them to use. It's something very comfortable. You skip the queues, you skip the hassle of, you save time, you save money. So you jump on completely empty niches. You jump on something, let's say, even the courier models, there's still a lot way more opportunities how we can deliver. What are the models we're working with couriers? If we're delivering from the supermarkets, or if we're delivering from our own dark stores. So I would say this is the opportunities. But since both markets are developing very, very fast, you also need to react to them almost immediately, grab them, and start working.
All right, awesome. I think it's very interesting to hear that in Angola they've not had a product like Mano in the past, right? So that means you are literally you are the first movers in Angola, right? I know for Nigerians we've experienced we have had a couple of products that have come, right, and also established, and it's a bit more established. But I know from what I see Mano do, it seems as though you've also been able to identify the gaps that are missing, right, and being able to close that up fast, because I've seen how a number of Nigerians also are very, very much now very good users of Mano, right, and they basically swear by Mano and say, hey, I'm going to order or make any purchases. I'm going to do it through Mano. So good work on that, and thanks so much also for mentioning that. So hi Pelumi, I'm just going to further push it to your hand, just like we've also said in terms of the people playing a role in the channels that we choose, right? The kind of customers playing, the kind of customers, the kind of experience we want to build, right? And also the type of products. So my question for you is, when it comes to marketplace brands employ omni-channel strategies, right? How do you ensure that they are not just synchronized across different channels, but it's also relevant to the local balance, right? So, say for NASPAs, right, or the other companies we work with, Umba and even SafeBorder, right, and which was later acquired by Coopers. How do you ensure that in all the omnichannel, the different campaigns you run on the different channels, right? Yes, you are maintaining a single experience, but how do you ensure that it is also relevant to the local customer at the end of the day? What are the things you put in place?
Okay, so at the time I first joined SafeBorder, they were largely running all the ads in English. And, I thought maybe, it wasn't a big deal, even though I know that, yes, English is part of what they speak, but I've been in meetings with these guys and half the meetings end up in Swahili. So why are we running the ads in English? And then I got the opportunity, before even getting the opportunity to go there, actually, I saw, asked a colleague who was on ground that took it on a drive round through the city, right? What are the biggest billboards that you see, and then take pictures and send to me. So she did that, and I realized, so hello, this billboard is half English, half Swahili. So why are digital ads in English alone? So it was one of the first experiments I ended up doing at SafeBorder, and the results were phenomenal in the sense that it was more than 100% increase in conversion rates because they could relate to the content more. So I started taking more interest in the local language. I understand a bit of Swahili. I've spoken a little of it too, because what I then started to do was I started to learn and understand the language. So if I am sending a copy to be translated, I can look at it and say, okay, yes, it does look like what we're trying to say. And thankfully, I've been able to work with other Kenyan brands since then. So from Quick Boss was also in Kenya. Peach Cars worked with Peach Cars was also in Kenya. So it's the knowledge has been useful, and you can't go wrong with it once you understand how they would normally react to certain things, right? It makes perfect sense to run it that way. Even in Nigeria, for example, you want to run an ad that is targeting the southeast of Nigeria, and you do not have an Igbo version, right? You're just joking. We did a campaign recently for a brand in Uyo, and we got someone to translate into Ibibio. Turns out that dialects of I'm trying to remember the other language that is close to Ibibio. So, and they all live in the same Uyo. So what it meant to the people who speak Ibibio, which was the major language, was different from what it meant to the other tribe. And then we're like, oh, you add saying this, and we're like, no, actually, we wanted it to mean this because this is Ibibio, and more Ibibio people live here. So now, if I'm redoing that campaign, I'm definitely picking there's someone from that other tribe as well to say, okay, fine, this is what we're trying to communicate. Let's have two different versions, one in Ibibio, one in this other language, and then use that to promote the campaign. Because once the people on ground lose touch with your marketing, you're just wasting money at the end of the day. So you have to, as much as possible, localize it. Tell them in the things that they can understand. The way Kenyans refer to shillings as bob, right? Like all of those little nuances are things that you want to have at the back of your mind, and it helps if you have a colleague on ground, or at least someone with local context who can help you make that happen.
Oh, I think I love the sound of that. And I'm also very, very much excited by the fact that you mentioned that just being able to understand their local language, right, and speaking their local language and speaking the context that in the context that they understand, using their own elements, be able to turn the ad around and move from and 100% of conversion rate, right, going forward. And I think I think we also have heard of this type of things, and I've also experienced it in even the campaigns that we work on our own end, whereby we have to we speak in English, you communicate in English, you all your hearts in English. But when it comes to it works in bulk of Lagos, right? But when it comes to like some specific areas, like you are trying to do things up north, you are trying to do things south, those areas are much more culture centric, right? And there's the need for you to be able to speak primarily to them in the language you understand, using the elements you understand, and using the context you understand. So thank you so much for running through that. Alexandra, just I don't know if you'd like to chime in on anything on this in your own experience. If you've had such situations where you have to like, now you're able to like achieve local context, bring in local context, and what were the impact on your campaigns?
I actually do have a question here. Currently, due to our customer portrait, as we know them, we're running ads in English. I do have some experience running ads in more local languages, and at least until some time ago, that's actually my question if it changed. I saw that the algorithms of, let's say, Google or Meta, especially Google, they were maybe due to the lack of learning, or I do not know why, they were kind of performing less in less well-known languages for the system.
Yeah. So
they were kind of deprioritizing. How's it going now?
true. So what happens is if you go all in on the local language, because the platforms have an issue with recognition, right? They will tend to deprioritize it. So what you do is mix. It would look like broken English, but the people that you're talking to understand the English part of it, and they also understand the local language part of it, and then it starts to perform better. So if you see an ad from Peach Cars in Nairobi right now, it might start out in English, but it will end in Swahili.
Okay,
so by the time
you kind of trick,
exactly.
the system. Okay, that's very interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my question is going to, I'm just going to push my question aside because I think Colin also is going to give further context on that end. Thanks very much, Colin, for that. So, Alexandra, I'm just going to run this. For Manu Africa, right, you've done, and even other brands you work with, right, you've been able to achieve very good results, right, at very efficient cost, right, and more often than not, in different campaigns, especially when you're leveraging multiple channels, you're reading Meta, and different other publishers, right? There's always the pathway you have to like either prioritize cost or prioritize results, right? So how do you balance this, right? And how do you ensure that at the end of the day you are able to achieve your goals, right, while maintaining efficiency?
Okay. I might be saying obvious thing or maybe not, but for me, we need to trust a tiny bit more to the algorithm, in the sense that all our campaigns, they are always optimized on the deepest level of the event. So meaning, obviously, to get the first purchase will be more expensive than getting an install or add to cart or, I don't know, any other login event. But currently, let's say the volume strategy, when you just get thousands of cheap add to carts and someone eventually going to convert, it's not going to work. You need to teach your algorithm, you need to teach your platform the exact, very specific event you would like to perform. Meaning, so when you instill a growth phase, it's always going to be just new users. We try to run campaigns on top funnel, on installs. The quality was never good. Maybe a bit better for the iOS, but still not good enough. First this, and second, more, let's say, in already expansion phase, not that much acquisition. We did quite some, let's say, cross-selling, meaning we already had our user base of people who ordered groceries. So we had to find a way for them to expand, to start ordering in new verticals. With incentives, with, again, very elaborated strategy of the CRM, of flows, we try to, let's say, make from one customer, we would make 3 customers because he used to order only on groceries, but then now they would be ordering pharmacy and just the restaurants. So meaning basically to resume to give the algorithm the very precise action what you want, and also to work with what you already have, which is customer base, and you have all the information about them.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So work with the algorithm, like give the algorithm precisely what you are looking for in terms of like the specific event that you're trying to drive results for, right? And also work with the try to, if I hear you correctly, you mentioned the cost sell part, so like you literally added more into like what you're trying to advertise, right, for the audience. Am I on track on that? Okay, yeah. I think that those two, I love the fact that you mentioned cross selling, because more often than not, there we come to marketplace, right? It's not just one product that you have, like a one category, right? And so, and the Nigerian or the African audience, both Nigeria, especially for Nigeria, right, where we are trying to make purchases, we are not just buying one product, we are not just buying one category. And typically, if we trust you for a single product, right, we'll definitely translate that trust even into other product and other categories. So I think that's a good one and a plus on that. Thanks so much for chiming in on that. Hi, Pelumi. On your own end, right, like you mentioned, it's always, when it comes to like these platforms, either Meta, Google, or third-party platforms, there's always the algorithm that works. So like, but for when it comes for startups, so like, especially for like the very for startups that are on shoestring budgets, right, it's very important that they're able to manage their costs, right? And sometimes when some CEOs don't want to hear you're just throwing money to algorithm, giving their money to algorithm to learn, right? Because learning also comes at a cost, right? And so it can be quite difficult trying to justify that. So what are typically the ways that you've been able to leverage for startups you work with? I know you work with startups, you also work with scale-ups. So typically, what are the ways you leverage to ensure that even at the very early stage, in terms of acquisition, the acquisition are very cost efficient when you are driving acquisition across multiple channels? Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so that's one of the most interesting things that I constantly have to do, because like you rightly said, it's not everywhere that you work that you're going to have the budget to get stuff done. I think I've worked with as low as like $1 or $2 a day, and then of course I've done up to like hundreds of thousands a day as well. But one of the things that you have to constantly do is, especially when you have like a low budget, is a lot of your work would focus on the organic part, and you have to show like a very straight line. That's not when you want to what's the word? That's not when you want to tell them that, you know what, we need to leave it for a little bit. That's not when you want to be saying all of those things. You have to be able to tell them that, okay, this is exactly what will happen. So what starts to happen is you learn ad performance. You become like a god, for lack of better of putting it, when it comes to ad performance. For example, I can tell you, if I set up an ad to start running now, in 12 hours, I know how that ad is going to perform before the next day or 2 or 3. I can look at it, okay, fine, it started delivering 12 hours. I can tell you exactly how that ad will play out. And it's because I've had CEOs, line managers breathing down my neck to say, oh, why are we not getting results yet, even though we're spending like $2-3 per day. In fact, there was a place that I worked that the man thought I wasn't doing anything, and then he went to tell his friend who owns an agency that, oh, we have this digital marketing guy, we're not getting results, it feels like we're just burning money. And then I spoke with the guy, so he said, oh, go talk to so and so that, he will tell you what to do. So I spoke to the guy, and the guy was like, oh, that you should be getting results, you've done A, B, C, D, E, you sound like you know what you're doing, it's C. And then out of curiosity, he just asked, wait, how much are you spending per day? And I told him, and he laughed, and he said, how are you people expected to get results with that? Are you even doing this, shows that it's not you, it's the budget and all of that. But essentially, when you do that, you're not saying, no, we have to start planning for attribution, or we have to do all of this. It's we launch the ad, we know how it's going to perform within the next 12 hours, and then we decide if we want to stick with it or not. Because for most platforms, for them to exit learning stage, you need to do minimum of like $50, right? But if you're running $2 per day or $5 per day, that means it's going to take you almost 2 weeks or more to exit the learning stage. You do not have that time. You do not have that budget. So you have to be able to take a look at it and say, you know what, this is not working right now. Let's try something new. And then whatever it is has to hit immediately. And it's been how I was able to get like some of the best results that I've gotten, even when I had like major budgets to work with. So I'm going to spend, $10,000 today, but I look at it 12 hours. This is not going the way I think, even though I know that, we would have exited learning stage within the first 30 minutes, but still, I need it to be better. Then I go in, I tweak. I am very super hands-on when it comes to my ad managers, even at management level that I am right now, because the knowledge is hard won and hard gotten. So I don't have a choice. You have to like be on it. Thanks.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for that perspective. Right, and I think it's very very surprising. You're working with $2, $1 per day, right? So that's about less than $50 in a whole month, right? You're expected to get results, right?
Funny enough, right now it's even interesting because $1, $2 is almost like 5,000 naira now.
Yeah.
Let's say $3, about that now. This was when that amount was less than 1,000. It when $5 was like less than 1,000 in total. So
Wow.
you have to.
I think that we'll probably want to classify as like the trenches in the track. Well, I think you've shared a very valuable point here, which is as much as there's the learning phase, right? And yes, there's the need for the have to go through the learning phase, right? But the early signals actually would you've been able to spot the early signals quickly and see the early performance. Especially when you're on very stringent budget, will help you to be able to know what to continue, right? What to scale down, what to scale up, right? And also like being able to. I think this also comes with a lot of data knowledge, right? A lot of being curious about the data and being very interested on the data, being able to monitor your campaigns appropriately, because if you're not monitoring your campaigns and you don't understand the data aspect of it, right, it's very, very much difficult for you to track if the campaign is performing appropriately, right, or it's not even performing at all. So thank you so much for that perspective, Pelumi. Right. I'm also going to just wing it back to Alexandra. Right. And yes, we've spoken. I think in this conversation so far, we've spoken about acquisitions. Like we've spoken about you being able to like drive users into your platform. Right. But as we all know, omnichannel marketing channels are not just limited to acquisition channels. Right. They also span across even lifecycle marketing channels. Right. Or basically owned and operated channels. Right. And so I'm curious on how typically, right, how for the different for your CRM, how you in working with CRMs, right, or working with owned and operated channels for both manual and even in previous organizations, right? How do you set it up such that it delivers at the right moment, right, and feels as human as possible? Like what's those the guiding principle that enables it to like do that appropriately? So how do you ensure that it, number one, delivers at the right moment, right, and feels as human as possible? Because there's a thin line, especially for Africans, there's a thin line between being consistent and becoming overwhelming and becoming evolving, right? And you want to ensure you're not alienating your customers at the end of the day. So what's that? How do you dance around the fine line to ensure that you are getting results, like while being human and as human and also as timely as possible?
All right.
You can try it.
Yeah. Sorry?
You can go ahead, Alexandra.
Okay. Yeah, I think we here there are two things we're speaking about. Well, speaking of automation, one is, let's say, content creation, and then people receive push notifications or ads or anything clearly written by the AI, and we've already seen it in a lot of ads. Unfortunately, human can detect when the text is not written by another human. So that's something we still try to, let's say, be manual. Try to actually speak, and there is someone writing our copies, writing our ads, brainstorming our designs, and that's not ChatGPT doing it. So that's one part of the automation who maybe at some point it's going to be there, but I don't think it's ready. But on the other side, let's say all the behavioral targeting or just triggers when user receive a certain thing. It's very much automated via our CRM platforms, via different more internal tools, meaning on the pure facts, when we know if user did this purchase, he's very much probable to do this and this. Afterwards, it's pure automation, pure data proven that there is a certain amount of days within two purchases, meaning in this gap, if we want to reduce it, we need to send push notifications. I imagine now it's a bit of a, let's say, hypothetical, but we know that users we know, thanks to machine learning, thanks to analyzing the data, users with two purchases would be performing differently than users of 5 purchases. And then the moments when they receive and what they receive will be automatized. Meanwhile, the content, I think it's still, there's a room for human here.
Awesome. So, just listening to you speak, right? You still maintain the holy grail of copying in terms of having humans actually like copy because you're speaking to humans, right? And in terms of like the automations and ensuring it's timely, you try as much as possible to you leverage data and machine learning, right, internally to know and understand the typical behavior of your users, right, and how different categories or different categories of users, let me put it that way, in terms of like their purchases, how that behavior, what they probably do next, right? And you use automations to guide them through that. I think that's a very good one on the end. Just also piggyback on that, right? In terms of like machine learning, just speaking about machine learning that you mentioned that in terms of like data, what are the typical emerging technologies, right, that you think that is very important, right, for big brands, right, and even the smaller brands to start imbibing. Because when you mention machine learning, it involves a lot of data. It's very true to even for the your algorithms and your models to actually be able to like learn appropriately. And so, not everyone necessarily have that amount of data available, right? And some do, right? I'm just curious on what are the emerging technologies on your own end that you think would be very, very much important in terms of like Omni-Channel marketing going forward, but I think that every brand should look at imbibing.
All right. What emerging technologies or channels will shape the future of marketing? Actually, I think that's pretty much same channels that everywhere else. They're still not very, very developed. So we do have to rely a lot on placing ads on the, I don't know, like, in smaller channels, which are smart TV or which would be inside bigger marketplaces. Well, in my particular case, that would not be. But in case of other brands, placing in Amazon, let's say rely not just on our data, but rely on obviously Amazon or Netflix or, I don't know, McDonald's even. They would have even more data on the customer that we do. So it's going to be a lot of merging between different partners, I believe.
Oh, okay, so from what you say, literally, you can, if you don't have all the data, you just basically like merge with people that do have the data about the customer, right? And I think like if I look at it from an African point of view, right, I think telcos will definitely play a very huge part here, because I think telcos are one of the platforms that have like the widest reach, right? Telcos. Well, the government also will play flat, because literally the government has everybody's information and documentation, right? But I know definitely for a fact, telcos would be a good one, and typically also maybe the big markets, right, or the big markets, right? So like FMCGs, right, because they also like have like the widest coverage that I think I've seen, especially when it comes to Africa. So like FMCGs have like very much good coverage. So I think it's also like a very good one for whoever is in the data and data intelligence and customer intelligence. It's like thinking about how best build like in a ethical way, be able to get this data from both telcos and FMCGs and be able to like use that in terms of like data enrichment. Because I've had different conversations with people, right, and there are some as exciting stuff as the data enrichment in the global space. But when it comes to Africa, it's always, or even Nigeria specifically, just speaking to Nigeria specifically, it's always a bit of a stretch, because where are you going to get the data to reach, right? To reach about your customer, right? So where exactly are these data stores that have like very good knowledge about your customer? So I think this is a very good opportunity for whoever is probably building in that space to look at how can we plug in telcos, how can we plug in existing data from telcos, FMCGs, and even the government, like in a very ethical way, right? In a very ethical way into like for brands to be able to like make it up and be able to also target customers better, right? And let's get to learn about customers better. Thank you so much for that, Alexandra. I'm going to just go right ahead into the next set of questions, and this is for Pelumi, right? And so, Pelumi, I'm going to ask you directly, because this is a question that some of our audience have asked, right? Especially people that have limited budgets, right? But they want to be able to do big things, right? And even for people that have big budgets and they are trying to ensure that they are as strategic as possible, right? Yes, there's Omni-Channel, right? Omni-Channel leveraging multiple channels, but and ensuring that it's synchronized along the way. But there's also ensuring that you are not, you are being efficient about it, which you have also discussed. So if I were to launch a brand in, say, Nigeria, right, or Africa as a whole, right, what are the 3 channels, if you're going to choose 3 channels to drive user acquisition and engagement, right? What are the first 3 channels you would look at exploring? Say generally, what are the first 3 channels you look at exploring, and why will you prioritize? Like literally, what are the first 3 channels you explore or prioritize, and then why exactly?
Okay, so I'll answer that. But on the data marriage question, right? If you have money, when you want to get a particular type of demography, run an ad with MTN. MTN has like an ad network. There's partnership between MTN, PC Mobile, and a few other people that allows you to basically run ads within internet, but give them the type of people that you want. Now, when you tell them to do that on your own side, monitor what's coming in. Make sure that you're measuring, you're attributing properly, so that by the time you bring that data together, stuff from their own end to stuff on your own end, you get like really amazing data in that, because MTN has like mad data. They know who's rich, they know who's poor, they know who's buying data regularly and who is managing 100 naira per month, so they have all of that data. So if you're able to get both sides, you're good. Now to the actual question, 3 channels: Google, Meta, and TikTok. Now Google, because Google has Google is like the ocean right now, right? They have everyone. So whatever you're doing, you either have a Gmail address, or you're using Chrome to browse, or you're tied into one Google product or the other at some point. Like globally, we're talking about 60%, right? And even within Nigeria, we're talking as high as like 70 to 80%. Like if you try and run an ad on Google and you look at the potential reach on Google and you look at potential reach on Meta, you see the difference. So Google will give you volume. Then Meta will give you exactness. What Meta does not know about us does not exist. Like a better way of putting it. Because you're using Instagram, you've used Facebook, you've used Facebook to log in, right? You've worked with websites who are connected to Facebook, even if you don't have a personal account with Facebook, and all those things are monitoring. Like Facebook has like one of the best targeting in the entire world. Like I said, if Facebook doesn't know about it, it probably doesn't exist. So Meta, because of that. TikTok, because now a lot of people are going to TikTok, and TikTok has like there's the tendency to get addicted to it like really fast. So we're seeing more people spend more time on it, which of course means that over time we're now seeing better costs on TikTok. For example, there was a campaign, and this is even a lead generation campaign, not even a consumer campaign. I test stuff myself, not even before I use it for clients or I use it for where I work. I basically just say, you know what, let me even see how this works, and that it's a lot about how I learned personally. I'm a very curious person. So some months ago, there's this brand that Bukayo and I more or less built like 10 years ago. So I said, you know what, let me even test run a video ad on this brand's handle, and we basically just like launched the campaign, and we saw that the views were really, really, really amazing. So from there I said, you know what, let's see what the performance is like on clicks, not just video views, and then I upped it again. All of this personal money, we're not making anything from it. We're just learning how the platform would work, because technically once you start spending a particular amount, TikTok doesn't give you access to ad manager in Nigeria at the moment. You can also get that access through PC Mobile, by the way. But we're basically just testing out the platform worked. And one of the things that we saw that was that, oh, this is really, really amazing in terms of numbers. Then I was able to fight for it with a project I was working on, that we definitely need to do whatever it takes to get ad manager access for TikTok. But it's not a Nigerian brand, it's a Kenyan brand. And the
Can you hear me? I think no, okay, Alexandra, I guess I have to.
No.
Can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes, but I think maybe I'm the only one who's still on the call.
Oh no, I can hear you. I can see you right now. I can hear you and I see you. Yeah, and you're on the call, though.
Okay,
call.
yeah.
Yeah, you're on the call. Yeah, so
but everything got stuck for like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I do have the question though about TikTok.
Okay.
Because for us, currently in Nigeria, there was a big stopper. I mean, we're food delivery, grocery delivery, so we are very localized in the targeting and the basic targeting, like geographically. And this is very limited for Nigeria on TikTok. So we don't know how to overcome it, because we don't want to be advertising in the areas we're not working to avoid the bad user experience. So yeah, for me, TikTok is a little bit of a mystery now, how to break it. Though it's a huge audience, obviously.
Okay, no problem. I think it's something that we can just feed Pelumi on once he's back. All right. But you can definitely continue. I'm sure he's going to join back soon, because once his network is done. So yes, Topolemi mentioned, Google for the reach, right? Meta for the depth of knowledge Meta has as regards like every single user, right? In terms of like understanding interest, right, and relative. Then TikTok in this sense for the addictive nature, right? Because it's a platform that more Nigerians, especially younger generation, are spending more time on and on every single day. Right. I think those are, so if you're considering, if you're probably considering, this is for our audience, if you're considering, leveraging multiple channels, right, online to be able to like drive acquisition and drive your numbers, right? These are similar platforms that you could look into like exploring, right? That doesn't mean you should definitely like get on each of them at once. Like you can basically start from one. Say with limited budget, you can start from one, get learnings on one, and then move to the other, right, and progress from there. Hi, Pelumi. We lost you
Yeah,
for
no,
a
but
bit.
Yeah, I realized that I was talking and then I couldn't see myself again. What
Okay.
was the last part that you guys heard?
We're actually
oh,
talking about TikTok end, right? The TikTok channel, like, and in terms of like setting up the limitations in terms of like setting up for TikTok, right, in Nigeria
Yeah,
currently. Yeah, so I
yeah.
think you can just wrap up your thought on that. And Alexandra also has a question that she wants to like
Oh,
explore on that here.
yeah.
okay. So essentially, what then happened was, because you can likely do that within a moment up to that amount, the stuff like open the access. It was like try to figure out a way to make it like.
Okay, hi, Pelumi, can you hear me? It seems as though your network is still a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, your voice is a bit muffled on my
Okay.
own end. Yes. We can also, and your video is frozen, so you can probably switch off your video. Maybe that would help with like the network challenge. So, just in case. Yeah.
Okay. It's off. Okay, can you see?
Okay.
Yeah, you're breaking a bit,
Oh,
but
okay,
yes,
great.
we hear you.
Okay, great. So essentially what happened was eventually I was able to get that working for the brand in Kenya, and the cost per lead on a campaign that we're running on TikTok and Meta at the same time, same creative, same audience, we're getting like 50% cheaper cost per lead on TikTok than on Meta. And that's how great TikTok is as a platform. But you need to have
Hi, Pelumi, seems you have.
And, that's a big intrigue. What we need to have.
I know, right? Looks like there's a fiber disruption somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So I'm having to use the hotspot.
Okay,
But
no problem.
essentially, the cost was like 50% cheaper versus Meta. Same creative, same audience, same location, and we're getting like 50% better results on TikTok. So Google, Meta, TikTok.
Okay, and then here comes my question about the TikTok, because I would love to use it, and I know that's amazing channel with a great audience. But TikTok, since we're very localized, like we only need to serve ads where we can actually work, where we can deliver. TikTok is very much restricted in terms of geolocalization. Like I don't want to target all the Nigeria, let's say. So have you found a solution for it to be more specific in your targeting?
Yeah, so once you get access to the ads manager, the ads manager allows you to go for that.
Okay. Yeah, because last time I was
boosting
checking,
posts, you can only
no.
do. Yeah. So if you're boosting the post directly, you can only in the area, Kenya, or if you get access to the ad manager, then you can select like major sectors. They only have like major Abuja for Nigeria.
Oh, okay.
In Kenya, they have Nairobi.
All right. Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you.
All right. So thank you so much for that question, also, Alexandra. And So, hi guys, if you are listening in, you can also like drop in your questions. If you have questions, please by all means drop in your questions for our speakers. Right, so we are going to have about a couple of minutes to be able to like respond to what question you have. So, please, if you have questions, as it as if you're working with a marketplace product, like we have experts here who are working currently and also have worked previously with like marketplace products. As both demand and supply in one platform, or you can literally ask your questions and your questions will be definitely answered here. And if you can't get into it, we'll definitely have time to answer your questions. So please, this is a very good opportunity for you to ask questions. Yeah. So I think we are getting to a very good part of the conversation, right? And I have this question for you, Alexandra. Right. For example, Mano, you've been working with Mano and treating Mano, taking care of Mano for the past 2 years, performance marketing Mano for the past 2 years. I know Mano, even though Mano definitely, I'll classify Mano as probably a new entrant, but not so new, but a new entrant like in the African space. You can correct me on that also if I'm wrong. But I'm curious, how would you typically measure, or how should brands measure long-term success when it comes to leveraging omni-channel, multiple channels, right? When it comes to leveraging multiple channels, how do brands ensure or measure long-term success, especially when because it's an heavy investment at the end of the day, right? And what metrics should be considered?
I guess knowing exactly how you measure it, because still in my experience, Nigeria and Angola, they are very seasonality fluctuating countries. So meaning it's not just measuring retention, because my retention in August is way worse than my retention in December. So having a big picture, not, yes, I said that we need to act fast, but also not take very, let's say, not very well thought decisions, saying like, hey, today, this month or last week, our retention went bad, so we need to rethink the strategy. No, you need always to have a bigger picture, to think about your strategy as a whole, and actually to be able to step back and to, let's say, maybe compare yourself, the company, your business a year ago or 6 months, depending on what you're looking for, to today, and only then you can actually decide how are you going and what's the next North Star to follow.
All right, thank you so much for that. I think you mentioned something that is very, very much important or very key, which is seasonality, right? And I think it's something that most brands don't end up taking into account, because seasonality, especially when it comes to like the African markets and even typically Nigeria, can help you to understand and can give you context on your performance, because more often than not you can see, oh, probably this month we had a lot of sales, we had a lot of activations, we had a lot of our gross merchandise value was like very, very good, right? Then the next month it seems as though, oh, we did all that good, right? And so like you mentioned, factoring seasonality would help you to be able to put things into context, right? And giving it appropriate time rather than measuring anything like days or months, giving it like quality time, right? Would help you to be able to identify those patterns that would also help you to know, okay, am I doing well, right, for this, or I'm not doing well at all. So thank you so much for that also. I'm going to just piggyback off into like Pelumi. And the question for you, Pelumi, is what are the common mistakes that African data brands make when they are trying to go omni-channel, and how can they avoid them? So I've learned to move beyond communicating with my customers or trying to drive results with just leveraging one channel. I want to be able to leverage multiple channels online, right, and have a very consistent presence across, right, while achieving huge, amazing results, right? What are the pitfalls I should avoid? What are the mistakes I should typically avoid in order to like achieve this?
Thing that most of these brands do is they spray and pray, right? They basically just yeah, we need to be on Google, or oh, we need to be on Facebook, we need to be on Instagram, and then they just put budget on it, and then they start hoping for results. So they're not approaching it from a data-driven perspective, and that can be really wasteful, because depending on the kind of numbers you're trying to get, right? When you're attributing, because we know that Google will give you volume, but Facebook will give you value, right? You basically decide on the percentage that you want to give both platforms so that you achieve a balance of both volume and value. So Facebook might give you a higher CPI, but you know that that CPI out of, say, maybe 100 people who install, seeing maybe like half of those or even less become your customers. So you need to approach it from a data-driven perspective. This is gradually changing, but it's not changing fast enough. They just say, you know what, let's hire the social media manager who then becomes media buyer and says, oh, it's a social media ad. So, and you're already social media manager, so just run the ad. So they're not spending money on great personnel either. And what happens at the end of the day is when they don't get results, they blame the guy, whereas that wasn't the guy's core competence. He might grow into it, but that wasn't what he was actually hired for. So after spraying and praying, you don't even have the right person to handle the channels, you know. Then, of course, what they think they know about the customer is usually there was this time when and this was NASPA's, right? Again, the stuff was, oh, let's build an AI-driven media app for young people. And for 6 months, that was the demographic, that was the target, 18 to 35 young people were interested in entertainment gist and things like that. And that was what we did for 6 months. Then I joined after 6 months, and then
Okay, since we really love to see what happened when you joined after 6 months. I'm invested in the story already. Okay. I guess just hold up a bit. All right. So, Alexandra, back to you. While we wait for Pelumi to, come back on, I have just one question for you. All right. Before, probably you say your final words. But look, just one question. Like Pelumi mentioned, most in Africa, most brands, what they do is that they spray and they pray, right? I think I got that. You said this where they pray, literally, which is, oh, let's go ahead to distribute budgets, right, without any particular weights attached to each of the channels and hope something happens. So for you, do you have a golden rule, right, or a guiding principle when you are going on the channel with the brands that you work with, right? Or what do you think has helped you in terms of scaling from one channel to multiple other channels?
Well, I would say it's pretty much international. You would never know how it would perform. You wish and you hope and you make a hypothesis, but actually you would never know how it would perform before testing. So first you go live on any channel you have an idea. Like for us, for example, what worked very well and we didn't expect it was not just Twitter, but surveys on Twitter or like votings, people voting for their favorite product or people voting for their discount. I would never thought about it. Someone came in with the idea, it worked. So basically definitely testing and then evaluating the data, trying not to risk too much budget before going on in. That would be the golden rule, and also helping to avoid a mistake of overtrusting a channel or maybe missing a golden mine that you would never imagine.
All right, so I hear you. Testing, right? Is very pivotal, very very much
Testing,
important.
even the most weird ideas, you always test.
Oh, okay.
And they might
So
work.
Yeah, so I'm going to follow up a bit on that in terms of like testing, right? In terms if you're running it, typically when you want to like implement a test, right, or execute a test, right? What are you want to probably mention? I know you mentioned the hex, right? But like typically, what would you do to ensure that you're able to measure the result of the test? Because at the end of the day, more often than not, it's when it comes to ideas, it's easy to test, right? And people try to test, but well, after they run the test, they realize that hey, I can't even say I'm not able to measure any impact because I did not put things in place in the first instance to be able to measure impact. I did not. There was literally nothing that was done to like ensure that we're able to like measure the impact of this test and see if our test was responsible for this particular um, what's it called, impact or change in the first instance, or it was just due to other factors. Right? So how do you typically guide around that?
I mean, we do always have some metrics. We would look at the test no matter what. We would look, well, first we have the way to track user along every of the platforms. So we would have for an MMP, for example, an apps flyer as our source of truth to be able to attribute every particular success to each source. So I think the data governance, to be able to trust your data is very important. And also to know what exactly you would like to reach from a particular source, because sometimes you would like, I don't know, awareness or just a bit more traffic to your Instagram, and you don't have to expect a boost of purchases from this test. So yeah, you define very well what you want, and then you unify your data to be able to track it.
Awesome.
If this answers your question.
Yeah, it does actually. Thanks so much. And it's also, I think you mentioned something which is key, which is like, having a mobile measurement platform that is a source of truth. Because at the end of the day, I think in my experience and even in other experience, people's experience, right, your hard platforms can basically give you very interesting reports, right, that are not necessarily 100% accurate, right. And so having a mobile measurement platform helps you to see that is properly implemented, helps you to see a true picture of what's happening on your own product at the end of the day, right? And you're not just depending on the different apps, because every single platform or ad network wants to claim acquisitions or claim sales that are not necessary from them.
Oh, yeah. No, they tend to attribute all the time, so you have to check it somewhere else.
All right, awesome. Okay, I want to ask a final question. Since I don't know if Pelling will still join back, but let me just ask a final question on your own hand, right? So, and this is just as it as Omni-Channel. Is there any brand you've either worked with or a brand that you just fancy, right? That worked on the particular Omni-Channel campaign and you really that it left a lasting impression on you, right? Just would love to hear from you, like what exactly made it stand out to you, right? And what do you think others people could learn from it typically?
Let me think about it for a bit.
Okay.
I'm the only one speaker, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, don't worry. While you think about it, I can literally just speak to the audience. So, hi everyone. If you are still listening, this is the time to ask questions. If you have questions for either Alexandra, right, or you have questions for Pelumi, right, you can basically just drop your questions in the comments. I'm not quite sure if I've sent any questions yet in the comments. So, but if you don't have any questions, that's also fine. I think we've also done a bit of good work in terms of like covering the breadth of what needs to be covered. So, once again, if you have any questions, you can definitely just drop it in the comments. Yeah, and I would also want to check a bit if Pelumi is able to join in now. If you have Pelumi in the backstage or the back room, but you can also just add him into the call, right? But if not, that's also fine. Are you speaking, Alexandra? Sorry.
I think he's no longer here. Unfortunately, I cannot see him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's not backstage. But yeah, maybe to to have a, like, let's say, final closing words and about talking about the lasting impression. I think what's important, and this is what we notice from the customers. It doesn't matter how you, I don't know, invest the algorithms, brands, and trust the machine learning and the AI and anything you would like to. Nothing would make, let's say, sense and impact if your customer is not feeling that he's taken care of. Meaning there's still a lot of human touch. There is a work of customer support. There is a work of, again, real humans writing real messages. And basically trying to make the customer feel that Mano or any other brand is there for this particular customer and his personal needs. So I would say that's the golden rule, the biggest impression, and nothing going to work without it.
Oh, I think that's a very good one. Basically, take care of your customers, right? If you're taking care of your customers, it will definitely leave a lasting impression, because at the end of the day, it's the experience that you deliver to the customer that keeps them, right? And they can recall. But if the experience is not up to par or is subpar, they don't recall it. They don't recommend other people to it, right? And I think something I've also learned from Africa, like about the Nigerian customers or African customers as a whole, is that we are very strong ambassadors. Right? If they love a product, they will definitely tell other people about it. They will bring their whole family. They will bring their whole community, and we are community because we are communal in nature. We have like everybody has like a very very good sphere of influence, and so if you're acquiring one customer, if you can treat that customer well, you are sure going to be getting about at least 3, 5, 10, sometimes even 100 or even thousands of customers from that same customer, right? And another thing that I've also learned is that customers, both the Nigerian and the African customers, are able to identify good experience, right? And they know if you are treating them well or if you're not treating them well. You can literally not fake. You can't fake you can't fake a good experience. It's either your experience is actually very good, well thought, and delivers to the customer, or is just what it is, right? And so the more you invest in understanding the customer and understanding how best to serve them, and actually going the great miles to serve them, the better, right? And you not just be acquiring one customer, you'll be acquiring the different people that they can also bring into your platform or bring into your product. Okay, I think we have Pelumi here right now. So so Pelumi, can I see your comments in the chat where you mentioned like your dad, everybody in the family has a first bank account because your dad literally can't stop talking about them, right? So I think that's typically how it happens in the whole African space, right? Most of the brands I use today, it's either because a family member recommended and said, "Oh," and stressed by them that, "Hey, these guys, right, would give you the best," right? Or because I myself experienced them and I myself have also like carried the gospel literally of that brand to other people. All right, so Kwelumi, I think we're on the question that we had to you, right? I don't know if you want to like complete your thoughts on that because we didn't quite capture the entirety of it.
Yeah, so just to be clear, I think that was the one on TikTok. We finished the one on TikTok, but then it was the one on
like the mistakes brand.
The mistakes. So one after spraying and praying, then you don't hire the right person to basically handle it, and at the end of the day, you're complaining about messages. One other thing which I think they generally don't do is think too much about organic or the over reliance on organic. So it's two-sided, right? They over rely on organic because every time they're coming to you, they're telling you, "Oh, how can we go viral organically? How can we do this organically? How can we do that organically?" And they forget that organic takes time. They're not willing to like take that time. They want it to happen right now. And then for the people who are not even thinking about the organic part of it, they forget that no matter how much money you have, it's not a bottomless pit. So you have to build your organic efforts alongside your paid efforts, right? So you can't over rely on it and expect miracles to happen. At the same time, you can't do all paid and then forget that organic is there. So those three, not having the right person, and then just basically just spraying and praying, not being data driven, not being very specific about the channels, the platforms, the attribution, and then either over relying on organic or not building up organic enough. Those three will like constitute like the biggest mistakes that I've seen generally within Africa.
All right, thank you so much. I think you've got spraying and praying without any form of data intentionality, right? Basically hiring the wrong people, not hiring competent hands, and over dependence on organic, right? Or even non-presence on organic itself. Right, I think this is also like consistent with some of the things that Alexandra touched on, right? Because on her end, she did mention as much as possible, test the platforms, ensure that you have a way of attributing whatever test you are doing, attributing the impact to the test, right, and attributing it to the platform, right, and also ensuring that you are not super reliant on this particular platform. Because once you become over reliant, I think something I've learned is also that once you become over reliant on the particular platform, they tend to change the rules, and once they change the rule, like the last thing you want to be is back to square one after investing a lot of funds on a particular platform because you've finally gotten very, very much good traction on that. Okay, so I'm just going to.
But one thing I do with the platforms generally is when I'm working on like different platforms, I do like a platform test. And I do this when, there's no pressure. We're basically just getting numbers and all of that is switch off one platform for a week or two, right? See what the figures tell you in that week when that platform is switched off. When you're done with that platform, switch it on, switch off the other one, and basically rotate that switch off across all the platforms that you're using. So you see a true picture, right, of exactly what each platform contributes to your bottom line, so to speak. So that when a platform starts to misbehave, okay, fine, I think we can rely on this one, or I think we can switch to this one. This one is a good backup for this. These were the numbers when this one was switched off, and these were the numbers when that one was switched off. And you basically get a better grasp of the platforms.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? And by switching it off, you're able to by switching it off, right, you're able to see how it's contributing, right? But I think a follow-on question is, will you consider it to be ample time? Because sometimes it could also the results you see could also be impacted by the performance of the previous performance of the platform. So is a 2-week period a good time, or is it depending on the budget you are also investing in?
So it will depend on your your view through attribution period. So is it last click, your attribution type, and then your budget. So are you doing 7 days? Are you doing 2 weeks? Depending on what that window is, it will give you a better period. So if you're doing 7 days, if you do 2 weeks, makes perfect. It's fine, right? But if you're doing a month, definitely 1 month is not enough because you will still be seeing attribution come through on that platform, even though it's switched off. And then you'll be getting questions like, we switched off Facebook. Why are we still seeing installs from Facebook? Forgetting that you have a 30-day window that you set maybe on AppsFly or whichever platform you're using for your MMP.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thanks for that. I think that brings clarity. The attribution window is set actually, and also the level of budget also to help you to know the best timeline to consider in terms of switching on and rotating the different platforms. Okay, final question for you, Pelumi, at least before our audience questions, if there's any, and it's also a similar to Alexandra. On your own end, has there been any campaign that you've seen from either a brand you've worked with or you worked on, right, or you just seen that you loved how they structured the campaign, right, across multiple channels, and while maintaining consistency in terms of its approach, and it actually made a lasting impression on you? For that can you share the campaign with us, right, and what you typically what stood out for you in the campaign?
I think there are a few of them. A few I worked on, if others I haven't worked on. But in recent times, Prioritise billboard campaign was something that was really interesting for me to see, in the sense that So they had these billboards go up around Lagos, and a lot of people thought maybe the billboards were the same, but actually, depending on your location, the billboards were not the same. The billboard that you saw in Ikeja was slightly different from the one that you saw in Ikoyi, and that was something for me that it was basically understanding that the caliber of the people who stayed in these areas, the level of personalization. We have more clubs, more nightlife happening on the island, right? That you can see that this is definitely a geo-targeted campaign, even though it was offline, right? And that was something that was really key, because it shows that whoever came up with the idea knew who they were talking to, and that was something that stood out for me. One that I worked on personally was, remember when I said that at NASPA's, afterwards seeing the demographic change, right? One of the things I then did was sat down and do like a deep dive into the data. So I told my line manager that I noticed something, and she said, okay, no problem, go ahead. Thankfully, because she had also noticed something similar, then it was there for her to give the approval. So she gave me go ahead to go dig deeper. By the time we dug deeper, I remember at the start we're basically doing AI focused media app targeted at young people, entertainment news, etc. And then I basically did a deep dive and realized that our loyal users, the people who stayed after month 1, month 2, month 3, were older people, were 35 and above. They were not particularly interested in entertainment news. They were more interested in political news and like metro news and stuff like that. And basically having to do all of that to the point where it was a whole 360. Like it was almost like we dropped the AI from the slogan overnight, and basically just targeted these people. And what that did for us was the retention rate, increased by about 35%. The loyal users, we knew it was like we had hacked the people that we needed to have been speaking to from the beginning. Even the media team, the editorial team, basically did a turnaround in the type of content that they created. And all of that put together basically gave us like really amazing numbers. So for example, in the first year we did the first 1 million users, right? But out of those million users, maybe we retained like 35%. But year 2, right, after we figured that out and done all of that, the next 1,000,005 users, we got those, but then we got like 65% retention rate. Normally retention rate tends to drop the more users you get, but I mean, this one was like really amazing, and for me that was a very key thing. It's one of the reasons why I tell people that from the moment you start acquisition, you have to start thinking about retention, which means you have to think about the product. And it's why I tell people that growth is not just a marketing function. There's the product part, there's the customer experience part, because if marketing does all the work and brings people in, but then the people they bring in are not comfortable with the product, or they don't like the experience, then all of that money would have just been wasted. But if they come in and they find a home, the work of marketing shines through. And I think that was it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And I think it was nice hearing that, right? And it also like just shows how much of being able to dig deep into the data, understand your customers, that would basically help you to serve them better, right? And just reiterating the words of Alexandra, if you treat your customers well, right, they would stay. They would sell your products, and they would, continue to use them. So you really need to take care of your customers. It's been quite a minute already. We've spent like the last 100 minutes thereabouts just chatting and talking about Omni-Channel Marketing, right, for marketplace products. Thank you so much, Pelumi and Alexandra, for your time. Thank you so much for what you've shared. Right, have picked up some gems already. We appreciate you. Thank you, Alexandra. Thank you, Pelumi. Thank you so much for coming on board, right, and also staying through the length of the session. Right. So far, just checking in, right, the team. There is no question from the audience, right? And if any question comes in, maybe after this session, right, or even in subsequent interaction with the content on YouTube, right, and we need your expertise, we'll definitely reach out. But it's been so good chatting to you, right? Once again, thank you, right? And for connecting with you, I know we have, excuse me, please. I know if you want to connect to the speaker, like you can just check. You can reach out to Alexandra on LinkedIn, and I think that it's worth mentioning that I had my first conversation with Alexandra via LinkedIn, right? I think in a couple of days, right, and she was quite responsive to me. So thank you so much for responding, right? And
You're absolutely welcome. Yep, happy
yeah.
to.
Yeah, awesome. So if you want to connect with her, you can reach out to her on LinkedIn, right? And for Pelumi also, you can, if you want to connect with Pelumi, you can reach out to him on LinkedIn, Oluwapelumi Ho, right? And also on X and Instagram at the Oluwapelumi, right? So feel free to absolutely reach out, right? And Pelumi is also he was the president of the Plan D, one of the largest organizations, the largest association of digital marketing professionals in Nigeria. Like he was their president, and he did some work in terms of like mentoring different digital marketing professionals. So, right, and I also know like if you reach out, he's definitely open to responding to questions that you have, if you in case of any, right? And speaking about communities, this particular webinar was also brought to you by GrowthHackers Africa. So GrowthHackers Africa is a community of growth operators in Nigeria and also spanning across Africa, right, who are doing amazing stuff, leading different growth initiatives within the country and also within Africa as a whole. So if you are looking at joining the community, right, you can easily just go to bit.ly/sign up to GHA, right? There's a short form for you to fill the short form, right, and you get admitted into the community. You also be part of our newsletter mailing list. And speaking about things, like this particular session is part of a series of sessions that I've been in for the past 10 months, right? Where we target the pillars of growth sessions, where we have been learning about the different key channels and key strategies that have been employed by African companies in the past decade to scale, right? We've touched on social media, right? We've touched on influencer marketing, we've touched on SEO and content, right? We've touched on product-led growth, we've touched on performance marketing, we've touched on traditional marketing, leveraging traditional marketing, we've touched on leveraging unconventional channels like third-party platforms, right? And the rest of it. We've also touched on I think we've touched on that. We've touched on that breadth. We've touched on direct sales also, right? Where we had sales leaders like Rashida Dewusi of Hemcopa, right, and from OP and Flutterwave, right. We've actually gone like the whole breadth, right? And we are in the next 1 to 3 months, we'll be wrapping up the series and launching on that set of series. And the essence of this is to be able to empower African growth operators with the resources, with the blueprints, and the know-how, basically scale up their own initiatives, right, and scale up the product that they are working on. So next month we are going to be having the second. Next month we are going to be having another session, right, and the session is basically focused on building a winning marketing tech stack, right, the tools and techniques for effective customer acquisition, right. This is going to come up next month, and if there's any changes, we'll also let us know. I think we are going to also have like a session, a second leg to this particular session, right, where we will be dive into like also offline strategies that have been employed by African marketplaces in terms of driving their own growth, right? So we'll be having a couple of people from also Conga, a couple of people from Conga, maybe Spotify, and the rest of it that will be coming to share their knowledge, right? And we also have this session coming up, which is focused on building a winning marketing tech stack, right? Through the different sessions we've had, people have talked about, mobile measurement partners, right? Leveraging mobile measurement partners, leveraging tools like leveraging SEO marketing tools, right? So how do you build up these tools? How do you get them to speak to each other, right? How do you build your tech stack, right? We'll be treating this in subsequent sessions as part of the Pillar of Growth series. Yeah, I think that's it for my own end. I am Oluwapelumi once again. I'm the community organizer at GrowthHackers Africa. So if you want to join GrowthHackers Africa, please don't forget the link, right? The link is bit.ly/sign up to GHA, right? And you can definitely click the link, fill the form, and you get admitted into the community. So it's been, once again, our speakers. Thank you so much for joining in. I don't know if there's anyone that has any other things to say, any final words or anything you want to touch on. Would appreciate or would love to hear from you too. Calling me, you're speaking. Sorry.
No, I was reading the comments. Thank you, Temilolu. Thank you, Lumide. Thank you, Alexandra. It was really nice speaking with you. We should definitely connect.
As well, yes. I saw you already on LinkedIn that we just connected, so thanks a lot.
All right then. Awesome. Okay, that's all for my hand. I guess it's good we can call it a wrap for today, and do enjoy the rest of your evening. All right. Bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Alex.